Hi, Dr. TJ Dixon here, connecting to your best life. Today's message is the wrap up of a 4-part series on the law of attraction and beyond. For the past 3 weeks, I have covered 6 of the 8 major laws of the universe. And if you've missed those videos, please check out my channel and go back and review those if you'd like. Today's message is covering the last 2, and those are the law of polarity and the law of reflection. But before I go into those laws, I'd like to go through a quick review of the last 6. We started off with the law of attraction and the law of deliberate creation in week 1. And the law of attraction is basically whatever vibration you give out, you get back. With the law of deliberate creation, that law covered us consciously creating our lives. Sometimes we create by default because many people would say they're living their lives and like, I didn't create this. I would never create this. But when we create by default, we're still creating. So the law of deliberate creation is us taking real charge of our lives and consciously thinking about what our thoughts are, so that we're very conscious to have positive thoughts to get back the positive energy that we're wanting. And we also take meaningful steps towards what it is we want. We stop talking about it and start being about it. When we look at the law of allowing and the law of sufficiency and abundance, that was in week 2. With the law of allowing, that is us allowing the universe, allowing God to deliver to us what we want in the way in which it sees fit. It also covered us allowing other people to be who they are instead of telling them who they should be. Because we often want situations and people to be different from what they are. With the law of allowing, we allow everyone and situations to be as they are. When we look at the law of sufficiency and abundance, the law of sufficiency and abundance lets us know that we are enough. We are enough. And not only are we enough, we live in an abundant universe. There is no scarcity. In week 3, last week, we looked at the law of pure potentiality and the law of detachment. And with the law of pure potentiality, that law covered our connection to God and that we are part of God, which means within our divine birthright, there is infinite potential. That no matter what someone else tells us, we have this infinite potential. I'm sure there are people who have been told that they couldn't do some of the things that they are able to do today. And yet they are able to do those because it was within their divine birthright, with the law of pure potentiality, that they had this infinite potential in them that comes straight from the fact that they are connected to God and a part of God. We all are. And then we looked at the law of detachment. And as I said last week, the law of detachment is like the law of allowing on steroids. Basically, it's this. We detach from the outcome of whatever it is we desire. We detach from the outcome. It doesn't mean that we don't think positively. It doesn't mean that we don't take deliberate action towards what we want. It doesn't mean that we don't allow it to come in whatever way it comes. It doesn't mean that we see ourselves in lack or we think that we're not enough. No, it doesn't mean that we don't recognize that we're part of pure potentiality. All it means is that we have done all those things. We have done our part, and now we trust and we have faith that whatever way it comes, whatever way God delivers it, that is exactly what it needs to be for us. And it doesn't, and we don't stress about that outcome. This law gives us all real freedom if we apply it to our lives, the law of detachment. And then we get to today, the last two laws that I'm going to cover in this series, which is the law of polarity and the law of reflection. The law of polarity says this, that within everything, there are two. Within everything, there are two opposite things. So if you even look at temperature, for instance, on one extreme there's cold, and on the other extreme there's hot. And then there's all these varying degrees in between. If you look at how we look at things, on one end, a situation could happen and someone could say, that's bad. And on the other end, someone could say, no, that's good. So it is the extreme opposites of everything is the law of polarity. There's an example that is given even about the Titanic. I've seen this story. When we look back at the Titanic, most humans would say the Titanic was bad. Why? Because the ship went down and all these people died. And of course, that is a tragedy. But if you were a lobster who was going to be served up that night for dinner, you might see this as a really good thing because now you're back in your environment, because you're back in the ocean, you get to be free and live. So that's kind of a comical way of, or an interesting way to look at it. But that's exactly how life is and many situations are for us, where it really depends upon how we look at it, whether it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, whether it's something that is wanted or unwanted. So basically, within the law of polarity, depending on our perspective, we can have life be rich and wonderful for us, or very poor and bad for us. I call it alchemy. When you're able to take something that's nothing or doesn't feel so good to you and turn it into treasure for yourself. For example, I use myself for an example. I went through major transformation about 14 years ago. And at the time, life really sucked. It didn't feel good. It really sucked. And every part of my life changed. My relationships changed. My health changed. My financial situation changed. Everything I could think of. My favorite job, I no longer had it. I got moved into another job, which was probably my least favorite job. So it was all of these things, and I could have looked at all of that and said, oh, all of this is bad. But when I went to my least favorite job that I ever had, I realized that was exactly where I needed to be. And that was actually a blessing to me, because my life was changing so much financially that had I had my favorite job, which didn't pay as much, I probably wouldn't have even been able to stay in my house for as long as I did at that time. So it's really about how we choose to see a situation. In every situation, we can either complain about it and think it's terrible, or we can rejoice about it because we know that it is moving us to the direction of living our best lives. So it's really about mindset. This particular law is really, all of them are about mindset, but this one's really about mindset. How do you wish to see the situation you're in? Because you can see it any way that you want and have different results as a result of how you look at that situation. For me, when I went through major transformation, I could have decided everything in my life was going haywire and it was bad, and I give up on life. In fact, I did do that for a moment. About 14 years ago, I was so distraught about how my life was turning out that I didn't want to live for a moment. And when I got through that moment, I knew it was a game changer. And I decided, no, I'm not going to live the life I've been living, but I'm going to live. And now today, I am living my best life. But it took a shift of perspective in my mind about what I was going through to allow it to become the energy that propelled me into my best life, rather than looking at it as an anchor to sink me in my life. And finally, with the law of reflection. The law of reflection says this, that whatever we see in someone else, whether we like it or don't like it, it's within ourselves, especially when we have a strong reaction to it. So if we see someone and we have a strong reaction like, wow, that person's so strong, or that person is so admirable, that person is so inspiring, that's because within ourselves, those qualities also lie. It may not be that we are seeing them within ourselves at the current moment, but they're there, because that's why we are able to see it in the other person, because they are reflecting what we are. And it's the same thing if we see something in someone, or someone who's really, you can't explain it, but you see them and they irritate you and you just can't stand them. Maybe you think they're being arrogant and they're being condescending and they're a jerk. Well, looking within ourselves, there's a part of us that needs to heal and transform, because that is why we're having that strong of a reaction to them. Again, we might not see ourselves that way. Maybe we're a very sweet, kind, gentle person, but perhaps there's a fear within us that we could turn into that person. And so whatever that is, we still need to do work to heal that part of us, so that we're not, we won't have that strong of a reaction, because we will not see reflected in them what we think could be in us. So the law of reflection, that one gets to be kind of tough. I have to even admit for myself, that is one that, I'm really good about accepting. Oh, if I see something in someone that I really admire, I really like, that could be in me. But the people, if I see someone, or if I know someone and maybe have a strong reaction to how they are, and I think it's not the greatest thing, it is tough to think about, well, maybe that's in me. However, this is part of the law. These are part of the laws of the universe, just like the law of gravity. Whether I want to believe that the law of gravity exists or not, it does. And the same thing with the law of reflection. So that's one of the tougher ones for people, typically, is the law of reflection. But truly, if we look within ourselves, just know that with somewhere in us, we have either a fear that we may be like this person that we really aren't liking, and also for the people who we really have a strong positive reaction to. If you see someone you think they're strong, so are you. Well, that wraps up this 4-part series on the 8 major laws of the universe. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you've missed any of the other parts to this series, please check out my YouTube channel and subscribe to it if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you so much. If you'd like to know more about the healing and wellness work I do, check out my website at www.drtjdixon.com, and may you live your best life.